Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion that is posted each Tuesday during the season. The Huddle features WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and historians. We first start off with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Here they are. A WeAreSC columnist who writes the WeAreSC.com's Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways. In addition to regular season football and basketball reports, he also hosts his own podcast show entitled Locked On USC. That's Marc Kulkin. The editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com, columnist, national recruiting guru, producer, and moderator of WeAreSC's 4 Downs and 5 Things video shows, and a graduate of USC. That's Erik McKinney, a former William Jewell College defensive back and WeAreSC.com columnist who writes the popular WeAreSC.com column Musings with Arledge and Musings with Arledge Solo Video Edition, a graduate of the USC Law School. That's Chris Arledge. And a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Fridays the Obvious and Not So Obvious, IMHO Sunday, WeAreSC.com's travel guide, and an active member of the Football Writers Association of America, your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle, Greg Katz. And a WeAreSC programming reminder, don't forget to watch WeAreSC.com's weekly recruiting video show, Recruiting Roundup, with nationally respected Scott Schrader and host Dylan Brazier. In addition, we invite you to read WeAreSC's premium inside recruiting stories and information from Scott Schrader and Marshall Levinson. And friends, WeAreSC.com is offering subscribers unlimited premium access for just $1 for a month and $49.99 for a full 1-year subscription. You won't want to miss the USC football website that really does tell it like it is for both USC and college football fans. And one final reminder, if you enjoy Inside the Trojans Huddle, we thank you and strongly encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the like and red subscriber buttons. It's greatly valued and appreciated, and it is free. You can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on most available podcasts. And one quick reminder, after every USC football game, shortly after, there is the video 5 Things with Marc Kulkin, Erik McKinney, and myself, where we go over 5 important factors leading to the Trojans' just concluded football game. Again, check that out on YouTube after every USC football game. So, we've got all the business at hand. Let's get into this, guys. The first quarter. Let's kick off the first quarter of Inside the Trojans Huddle. The number 6 Trojans opened the 2023 season on Saturday night in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum by playing a tale of 2 halves in defeating San Jose State Spartans 56-28 in front of an announced attendance of 63,411 fans. So, panel, your assessment of the Trojans' offense on Saturday night. Who stood out for you? We'll do our leadoff, as always, with Marc Kulkin. Marc, what about that offense? Did you like what you saw?
I liked the final score, 56-28. I'm not sure I enjoyed the offense completely. I mean, there were some really nice moments. Like Chris and I probably talked about in the past weeks, watching Caleb Williams run the ball, that bothered me a little bit. I don't think anybody was looking forward to him having to protect himself, crashing into a metal bench on the opponent's sideline. But look, as far as what this offense is capable of doing, they can put up 56 points against San Jose State. I don't know that you got a really good idea of how good this offense can be when you're shuffling your offensive line rotation around as frequently as you are, especially early in the game. Bringing in skill players, rotating them in, great, outstanding. Love to see it. Your offensive line, though, you need to have some consistency, and that's what they talked about after the game. There wasn't a whole lot of consistency with the offense, and Caleb brought this up. So what stood out was Caleb Williams is still Caleb Williams. He's going to make plays. 2 freshmen, Zachariah Branch obviously had a nice game. And Quentin Joyner at running back, he showed me why the coaching staff is really high on him. I don't think you really saw a whole lot out of this offense. It was pretty vanilla. but they did what they had to do to get the job done. So my takeaway is hopefully they clean up some of the little things that we saw in the first game, and they come out and just look better in their second game.
Erik?
Yeah, it wasn't perfection. I mean, and Caleb Williams wants perfection all the time. So it was, you see him get frustrated when they have a three and out. He takes a bad sack. He had the intentional grounding. Look, the first team offense, right? You have to put that in quotes because there were like 19 guys on the first team offense in that game. 8 possessions and they scored 6 touchdowns. You're going to be okay. And they basically did that by just kind of falling forward against what is not going to be a great statistically San Jose State defense, but fine. It's not an opening game that you're embarrassed to have on your schedule. That is a fine team to play a preseason-ish game against and have that kind of offensive output. What you ended up doing on here is you got a really good look at a bunch of different offensive line combinations, where those guys are going to work. You're much farther along, I think, now at that point in figuring out who your top 5 are and what your 6, 7, 8 rotation looks like. You let Zachariah Branch put the fear of God in every upcoming defensive coordinator. That is something that every team now has to spend a ton of time trying to figure out. And you didn't really put anything else out there. You had, Dorian Singer caught 4 passes. There was a really nicely designed play to him, but everything that Zachariah Branch did, Lincoln Riley has 3 or 4 things to go off of that. So again, this was about letting a number of guys put film together. How does it work with this guy at left guard and this guy at center and this guy at right guard and all of that? And then just kind of seeing who makes plays when you throw this out there. And so I don't think you're looking for perfection on there. Again, Caleb Williams was, because he always is. And so when they go 3 and out and there's 2 drives where they lose a combined 25 yards and go 3 and out, that sticks out like a sore thumb when this offense does that, even in these scenarios. But at the end of the day, you look at yards, you look at what they were able to accomplish, and you can't be upset about what they did offensively.
Well, let's move on now to Chris. Chris, of course, is still in England and was quite a trooper. Tells me he stayed up till 4:15 to watch the game. That's 4:15 in the morning. So, Chris, how did it look from across the pond offensively?
It looked late, is what it looked, Greg. And look, the offense was fine. As the guys have already talked about, they were shuffling in all kinds of offensive linemen. It's very difficult for an offense to be consistent when you're shuffling in that many offensive linemen. And the offensive line wasn't always great as a result. I'm convinced they'll be fine. By the time USC gets the teams that actually can compete with them, that offensive line will be fine and the offense will be fine. A couple of things that jumped out at me. One was we saw once again why Caleb Williams is going to be the number 1 choice in the NFL draft. The play where he fumbles the ball, he's picking it up. He's square to the line of scrimmage. He has a guy in his face, and flat-footed, he chucks it 50 yards for a touchdown. It's unreal. I mean, there may be 3 other people in the world that can make that play. Aaron Rodgers might be able to make it still. Patrick Mahomes could. Josh Allen might be able to make that play. I'm not sure anybody else can. I mean, you watch a play like that and you realize just how immensely talented the guy is. Incredible. I don't think he played great. I mean, his numbers were good. He didn't play badly. The sack that he took late in the first half that helped set up that lousy touchdown that made the game much closer than it should have been at the half. That was a bad play, and that was on him. He should have gotten rid of the ball. But Caleb Williams is a superstar, and anytime you get a chance to watch him, it's enjoyable. We only have a few more. We only have this year. The other thing that stands out, of course, is Zachariah Branch. For the last year, I've been promoting Zachariah Branch as the next Reggie Bush and Erik McKinney, to the point where Erik McKinney's been making fun of me McKinney's never been a branch.
No, Erik would never do that.
He's never been a branch supporter. And what it turns out that I was underselling him. I mean, look, that kid is unbelievable. And Erik's right. Every defensive coordinator on the schedule is looking at that and saying, what in the world are we going to do with that guy? And the answer is, you're going to hope and pray every time he touches the ball that he doesn't score. I've been saying Reggie Bush, Adoree Jackson. Truth is, I think the guy he reminds me most of is Rocket Ismail from Notre Dame back in the late 80s.
Good point.
He's same size, similar skill set. And look, if you're old enough to remember Notre Dame from the late 80s, you remember every time Rocket touched the ball, it didn't matter if it was a kick return, it didn't matter if it was a screen, it didn't matter. Anytime he had the ball in warm-ups, you were scared to death he was going to take it the distance because he was that explosive. That's Zachariah Branch. Branch is going to be the second best player on this offense by midseason, and behind Caleb Williams. And he is going to be the most explosive, potentially the most explosive player in the country as a true freshman. He's extraordinary. I mean, look, you saw what he did. I know it's San Jose State. He's going to do that kind of stuff against everybody. He's that fast. He's that quick. He has that kind of vision. He is unbelievable. And the reality is, it's not like you can just worry about Zachariah Branch. USC has a ton of talent on that offense, right? It's all over the place. Taj Washington looks great. You've got a bunch of the older receivers look good, and you've got four freshmen. You have four freshman receivers that could probably start at 75, 80% of the schools in the country. That offense is going to be fun. The offensive line will settle in. They'll get a rotation. They'll get used to playing with each other, and the offense is going to score a bunch of points. Will they score 56 every week? Probably not, but I'm not going to promise you that they won't either. So the offense wasn't great. It was a C performance from those guys, I think. But that's an unbelievable group that as we get into crunch time, by the time you get to South Bend in October, we don't have anything to worry about with that group. They're going to be solid.
Yeah, there's only Zachariah Branch could have overshadowed Caleb Williams. That's how good he is. That you want him to get the ball just to watch him perform. His nickname, I believe, is Ease, and he does it with such ease. And people say, well, he looks like Reggie Bush, or he looks like Lynn Swann from generations ago. He's his own guy as far as I'm concerned. But I think the Rocket Ismail comparison is spot on, because if you were old enough to remember Rocket, it's too bad the name Rocket has already been taken and he's identified with it. When they substitute as liberal as they did on the offensive line, you can't get a continuity. You can't, guys need repetitions. They treated it like an NFL exhibition game. They felt they obviously could, pull away at some point against San Jose State. I'll tell you what did concern me, though, was the amount of hits that Caleb Williams was taking on this. I don't know if it was just some of it was a new option series, or hanging in the pocket too long, or breakdowns on the offensive line. He took way too many hits. Not in a 12 games. He's never going to last a 12-game season if he keeps getting tattooed like that. It only takes one, as all of you know, and then SC's got to, really scramble. Not that Miller Moss did poorly, because I liked seeing Miller Moss. He's efficient. He's workmanlike. He puts the ball right on the mark. So the good marks for him. But they've got to figure out a way not to get Caleb racked up like that. It looked to me like he was really frustrated at some points, and he got up slowly on some of them, and that is a cause for concern. So let's move on. Let's turn the tables a little bit to what everybody across the country was talking about besides Zachariah Branch, and that was the USC defense. Panel, your assessment of the Trojans defense on Saturday night. Who stood out for you, Mark?
Do I have to pick someone that stood out?
Well, if there's nobody, you certainly can say there's nobody. Your choice.
I'll say this. As far as the position that stood out the most, the rush end. Look, last year that was a weakness. I think that position performed much better with Anthony Lucas and Jamil Muhammad. I'm at the point where it's still the first game, bunch of new guys trying to find their way. Tackling looked better at times, but there's some schematic things that need to be worked on here. Look, I don't want to keep sugarcoating it anymore. The defense did enough. There was obviously a couple of breakdowns. I'm not sure what was going on right before that first half ended with that coverage. Again, you don't need to be exotic and fancy when you've got bigger, stronger, faster players than the opponent. Just line up, do what you're supposed to do. You know, when you're going up against a sixth-year quarterback, he's probably seen enough to know that if there's a bunch of green grass over there without defenders, that's probably a place to go. And that's what would happen when USC got overly aggressive with some of their blitzes. Plays broke down, and there was places to run. Again, what I saw, better tackling, better players on the field, the rush-in position actually having an impact. They were getting a push up the middle. As far as the secondary, I don't know. There's a lot of work to be done, I think, is what Lincoln Riley said after the game. You take away some of the bad plays, the end of the first half. I don't think anybody's really upset with the final score, but you kind of lump everything together. The penalties with the grabby guys playing in the secondary, it just didn't look like they had turned the page from last year. Although when you look at certain situations, you can tell they have turned the page. They just need to. I think the word consistency is probably going to be overused a lot in this show. Hopefully they can get that figured out against Nevada. You hate to say that they're using these first two games, and I agree with Erik that they're using them as or I think it was Greg, I'm sorry, as a NFL expand. You know, NFL uses their exhibition games, but I kind of get the impression that's how they're looking at San Jose State and Nevada. They know they can beat them, so let's just throw everything out there, see what we can find out, and start playing it for real when Stanford comes to town. Having 70 players get in the game, 43 taking 10 or more snaps, it's a lot of rotation. So it's hard to say the defense sucked. It didn't look good, but there were moments when it looked good. So I'm going to that's my positive spin. There were signs that this defense can be better than last year. It doesn't have to be great. It has to be better.
Agree, Erik?
Yeah, a lot of that. I think the players and Lincoln Riley after the game are on the right track for them. And I agree with Lincoln Riley when he says that it's very obvious that both the ceiling and the floor are higher than they were last year based on kind of talent and all of that. There are still clear issues. And so now at this point, you can really see it going either way, because last year at the start of the season, it was there are these giant plays that these other teams and they don't even seem to have to work that hard to get them. When they line up and there's a giant hole at a spot on the defensive line and they run through that hole, it's not Mensa level football. And obviously that's not the idea defensively to allow that, but when that happens and then it happens and it happens and it happens, I mean, that's kind of the thing where it doesn't matter if that's coaching or players. And to his credit, Alex Grinch says this a lot, where if the players are making the mistakes, that's still on us for not getting them to not make the mistakes. So again, there's a lot of coach speak there, but it falls back to kind of where you're talking about coaching with that. So there's a few of those things. There were far more plays in this one. And again, I'm going to say pretty definitively San Jose State this year is a much better team than Rice was last year, especially when Rice's quarterback goes out pretty early in that one. This quarterback can play a little bit. He's not the big time guys on the schedule, but there's something to that offense. And there were far more plays that didn't go anywhere in this one. You're not getting those 5-yard runs on just anything up the middle, and you're finding space. So there's positives there. The big plays, up the, as a run where you're putting one guy for USC's defense. It's one guy's job to stop this play. And if he's not there, it's going for 50 yards or 30 yards or those kinds of things. Those are the things that are tough to see over and over and over. And you wonder if there is an answer to that other than this guy has to play a lot better or make these plays that maybe he's not capable of, which again is kind of tough to hear. But I think, again, you talk about some of the big name additions that came over, and you like what you saw from Keon Bars and guys like Jack Sullivan, Jamil Muhammad, you mentioned. I think Bear Alexander and Anthony Lucas are really interesting because they became such household names for USC fans this offseason because they were such big-time recruits coming over from A&M and from Georgia. These guys just played 20% of their career snaps in that game. Like, these are not guys that are multiple year starters when they came over. They had under 170 snaps apiece at those schools last year. So they're still kind of getting their feet wet and figuring that out. But the flashes that you saw from some of those guys up front, they're going to be okay physically against these other ones, which you didn't know. You didn't know last year if the line was going to be okay physically to kind of go one-on-one or win the matchups that you wanted them to up front. So that's kind of, I think there were enough positive steps to say, if things go the way the coaches are vocalizing and certainly hope they're going to go, the defense can get there to a point where they're doing enough to let this team win. There's also enough kind of alarms and red flags to think there's still a lot that has to get buttoned up to where you're playing with those championship teams. Because the real issue is that guys like Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and these guys, when they talk about their goals this year, they talk about winning championships. And USC fans, understandably, what goes in their mind is Georgia. Georgia won the national championship. Here's what it looks like to win a national championship. So they're setting themselves up to kind of say, we want to win a championship, and then what gets filled in is, okay, you need to look like this team. I still don't think they need to exactly, but that's kind of the bar they're setting, and why I think, at least partly, there's so much kind of consternation, I think, from USC fans.
Consternation, an excellent word. Now, Chris, you know your offense, but your wheelhouse is defense because that's what you played. So I'm really curious to hear what your take was on what you thought of the SC defense in game one.
This is a show where we tell it like it is, right, Greg?
Absolutely, buddy.
That was disappointing. Every single Trojan fan who watched that game was disappointed by the defense. Every single one. And we're going to try to justify and rationalize. We're going to try to put a positive spin on it. But every Trojan fan who watched that game was disappointed by the defense. The defense did not play well. Now, it's the first game of the year. They were playing a ton of guys. And so it would not be a surprise if that USC defense improves considerably over the coming weeks. Okay? I'm going to put all that out there. I know we're going to have people on the YouTube comments screaming at me because I'm not positive enough for them.
Hey, don't take all the credit.
Listen, I know. They know what they're going to get from you. Listen, guys, I know it's a first game. We were playing a bunch of guys. I get it. All right, and those are legitimate arguments. You shouldn't give up 7.3 yards per carry to San Jose State. I don't care. Enough of this. We had an entire season last year where USC got gouged on the ground almost every single week. Everybody inside that program and outside who cares about them, like us, knew that USC had to be able to stop the run this year, right? We all knew that. Did they stop the run? Not well enough. 170-something yards, 7.3 yards per carry. That is unacceptable. Part of the problem is that Alex Grinch continues to put his players in difficult positions. He is too damn cute with his play calling, and instead of playing it straight, USC has better players than San Jose State, considerably better players. USC's front six, you can tell by watching the game, those guys are bigger, they are faster, they are more athletic, they are more talented than the guys USC put on the field last year. But Alex Grinch insists on playing an extraordinarily aggressive scheme of defense that frequently leaves his players in very difficult positions where if a guy doesn't make a play, it goes for 60 yards. Can we please stop doing that? I mean, seriously, can we please stop doing it? Why are we doing that every week? Why are we doing it against San Jose State? San Jose State is not a bad football team. I agree. I agree with the guys. That's not a bad football team. That quarterback of theirs is pretty good. He has 50 starts under his belt. He can run pretty well. And after 50 starts, he's probably going to recognize a lot of what you're trying to do to him. They're not a bad football team. But why can't USC just line up and play football against a team like that? Why can't we do that? Why do we have to do it where at the end of the first half, we're trying to disguise cover two because we can't possibly have San Jose State know that we're in a cover two. So instead we have a corner who's lined up as if he's playing an off man, and then he has to sprint to the hash because he actually has cover two responsibilities, and then he has to sprint back from the hash, back from the sideline because they're running a fade, and it goes for a touchdown at the end of the half. Why? I mean, I'm frustrated by this because it doesn't make any sense to me. USC has much better talent than they had last year. I agree, the rush position looked pretty good. And you know what? Jamil Muhammad, who I was not sold on because his numbers last year at a much smaller conference didn't look good, that guy's an athlete, right? He can play. That defense should be good. They don't have Georgia's talent, but they should be pretty good. They shouldn't give up 173 yards and 7.3 yards per carry. By the way, you take away the 22-yard sack that Solomon Byrd got, and they're over 8 yards per carry. 8 yards per carry? This wasn't Tommy Frazier and the 95 Nebraska team. What are you doing out there? Stop giving up gigantic runs. Please, stop it. And you can tell, look, USC will line up at times where they have one guy between the center and the tight end. One guy. And then it's stunning to all of us when they run that direction and pick up 40 yards. It's like nobody could see that coming, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm frustrated by this. I'm frustrated because, not because these guys owe me anything. They don't. I'm just a fan. But you know what? They owe it to Caleb Williams to put a freaking defense on the field so he can win a national championship, which is what he wants to do. Put a defense on the field. And at this point, I'm not sure you can blame the players. That defense has enough talent to be a top 20 or top 25 defense, which with this offense and the guys they've got over there is more than enough to get you in the playoff. Get it together, Alex Grinch. Lincoln Riley, get it together. This was your choice. You said, this is my guy. I'm going to go with him. I have faith in him. And then they come out in the first game and they look just like they did last year with better guys. It's nonsense. So yeah, I know I'm getting negative. I'm getting really worked up right now. I'm going on a tirade.
You couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
I'm frustrated by this. It was an unacceptable performance. And guys, don't tell me otherwise. It was an unacceptable performance. Yes, there is enough talent and there's enough time that these guys can get better. But that was a bad performance. And every single guy that's a part of that USC football program knows that it was a bad performance. We all know it. I was angry watching it. I'm angry now. They should have been better than they were. That's the reality.
Well, I tell you, I think we all feel better for that. Frustration.
I don't. I feel worse.
Well, frustration is clinically suppressed anger, and I can tell you that everybody that I talked to was not pleased with that defense and felt exactly like you did. You can be reaching for positives because there was some positives. There's no question, some of the individual play, but anybody who's ever coached and is objective about things, really the last person you want to blame is the coach, because the bottom line is, if you have coached at any level actually and you're objective about it, it's about the players playing. But sometimes you wonder about the old investment and return. And I'm starting to get concerned about the schemes. Some people say, now you're going to get concerned about it. I was concerned about it from the midpoint last year. The late Kevin Bruce and I would talk for hours about what we were watching and what we were seeing. And I deferred to Kevin. He was the captain of the 75 team. And he definitely, those of you that have talked with Kevin or watched our shows when he was here with us, or read his column, Defensively Speaking, he knows what he's talking about. And I could already hear him in the press box, as loud as you could possibly have from the heavens, saying this is incredibly unacceptable. In fact, I said to Erik, and Erik brought up the good point. You could see where the problems were. The thing that frosted me the most, and I'm not going to get into some long dissertation, was the inability to contain the quarterback. How they were, it's like there was nobody out there. And when you have a quarterback that I think this was his 6th year of playing, he knew what he was doing. And it was like, is there anybody out there to contain? As one caller called me today who was in the press box, said, why don't we just jump back into a 52 defense, which is basically 2 outside defensive ends, stand them up, have them come across the line and scrimmage, and just set and let the inside 3 guys just do their thing. Well, we all know that with all these wide receiver sets, that's sometimes a little difficult to do. But, a lot of this, when you start making the drive for the playoffs and the committee's evaluating, this defensive thing has gotten to the point where it's going to be a real burden for Lincoln Riley to take all the words he said in the spring and in the fall here in training camp and say, are they really doing what you said? I mean, we all can say they have work to do, right? They have a lot of work to do. They're a long way to go. But really where they should be today is simplifying the defense, a much better option. And again, I hope that Alex Grinch can succeed. I don't like to see any coach get under the heat, but these guys are getting paid. I would assume Alex Grinch is probably in a $1 million category there. So, boy, I hope they can figure it out, because I don't think they're as good as Notre Dame right now. I really don't. After the difference is the defense. So enough of that. I don't want to prolong this. Let's conclude the first quarter with panel, your assessment of the Trojans special teams on Saturday night. Like this is like a rhetorical question. Who stood out for you, Mark?
Softball, Mark. Hit it.
That's a tough one. Mark, you want to take 2 minutes to think this one over?
You know what stood out to me? The Trojans kicking game. No. Look, Zachariah, here's a stat that stood out to me, and I saw this today. Antonio Morales tweeted this out, and it blew me away. Last year, USC had a total of 90 net yards in punt return. Zachariah Branch had 66 in the first game. So my takeaway from the special teams is USC has a scary special teams. Their return game, we've all talked about Zachariah Branch right now. Chris said it, Erik said it, Greg, you said it. Other programs now have to worry about, do we kick it to them? Or do we just kick it short and let USC start at the 25? If you kick it too short, and then you're going to have a guy, one of the up guys, fair catch it, kneel down at the 30 or the 35. You're really between a rock and a hard place. But to have that third element back there, that Zachariah Branch, that literally can turn the game like that. I mean, when USC was kind of reeling a little bit, for him to step up at that moment and have that kickoff return for a touchdown, that was huge. I mean, it could not have come at a better moment. Chris, you brought up the name Rocket Ishmael. We might be, and this is a little bit of a hyperbole, but with Zachariah Branch and Caleb Williams directing the offense, we could possibly see a freshman in New York for the Heisman ceremony if Zachariah continues to develop as we all anticipate him doing it. Now, the other side of the special teams that was scary was that onside kick recovery or lack thereof. Lincoln Riley had every right to be blasting the officials, but I'm wondering if he was blasting the officials because he was frustrated with the way his team covered the onside kick. Yes, there were mistakes made by the officiating. It should have been USC's ball. But coming out of a timeout, I don't understand why this team still has issues on special teams. Look, I get it. The easy answer is you don't have a dedicated full-time special teams coach. Until that happens, we don't know if that's going to change things. I'm happy with Dennis Lynch kicking extra points. I don't think he's got the leg to do kickoff. So they did a little bit of experimenting there. I like seeing the linebackers kind of breaking the huddle on kickoffs when they're lining up. At first it was Shane Lee, and then when he came out, Taka Curtis assumed that same role. That was something that I kind of picked up on. Special teams now, though, yeah, you've got a legitimate punt returner, you've got a legitimate kick returner that literally makes the other team have to game plan. How are we going to attack USC when they're receiving the ball? Other than that, you know, let's get the other stuff cleaned up so Lincoln Riley isn't blasting the officials on the sideline over his own special teams.
Erik?
Yeah, I mean, Zachariah Branch weights the grade hugely, but you had one kickoff go out of bounds. You had kind of the onside kick recovery thing again, which was kind of a replay of last year's game against Arizona State, where the refs did get it right in that one. So it's still not perfection. Now, Zachariah Branch can cover up a lot of issues. And so we'll keep doing that. But the punt return thing, that number that you said, this is not new. I mean, USC could not return punts in 2021. They weren't good in 2020. They weren't good in 2019. It has been a long time since USC has really done anything outside a couple of those trick punt returns where they got some big runs and a touchdown on that. But just in terms of putting a true punt returner back there, it's been a while for USC. So that's different, and that changes a game when you can send him back there. If a team has to, again, I talked about what he's going to do to teams defensively scheming against USC's offense. Special teams too. You make a team spend X number of extra minutes worried about punting this way or kicking this way or whatever. When you send a guy, when USC sent Reggie Bush out there and the crowd started Reggie, you won that down. You won that down before the snap. You put stuff in the other team's mind of, we're going to screw this up and we're going to be on highlight reels for the rest of the day. So that's kind of what he gives you, I think, on special teams too. And obviously, I mean, just the confidence that he has in all aspects. If he gets to field that second punt, I think, fully oxygenated after that kick return, I think he takes that one back too. I mean, he's one of those guys where you start looking at career return records if teams are going to keep kicking and punting to him.
Mr. Arledge, what do you think?
I think that only the most stubborn coaches are going to kick to him. What you're going to see is you're going to see a ton of kickoffs that go out of bounds, and you're going to see a ton of shanked punts, because the kickers know they're going to be told all week, and they'll know before practice that week, because everybody in the conference already knows who this guy is now. They know you cannot let that guy catch the ball with room to run, because if you do it, you may have given up a touchdown. They know that, and so they're going to go overboard trying to keep it away from him. USC is going to get great field position consistently in the special teams because teams have to kick away from the guy. The other thing to think about when it comes to Zachariah Branch is that, you know, the teams that tend to do something special, the teams that tend to win it all, are teams that have at least one special player. You have to be great at a lot of positions, right? I mean, football, it's not like basketball. You can't have one guy who's amazing and that changes everything. You have to have a full roster. But the teams that are great, the difference between 2003, 2004, 2005 USC and 6, 7, 8 is not just Norm Chow. It's the lack of Reggie Bush, right? Because that makes an enormous difference when you have a guy who, even if things aren't blocked perfectly, even if things aren't done as exactly the way you'd want them to do, can simply make 4 guys miss and outrun the other 7, right? I mean, that matters. USC now has 2 of those guys, right? They have they have a bunch of good players, but they have 2 talents that when you just watch them on the field, you say, normal people can't do that. That's something that is very, very rare. And what that means is that they're going to be a problem on special teams and on offense for everybody they play. I don't care who it is. If they play Georgia, Georgia's defense has problems. That's just the way it is. Georgia's defense has problems. Now, Georgia's offense probably doesn't have any problems in that game, but their defense does. And so, yeah, I mean, what stands out about USC special teams? The little guy who runs a 10-200 meters and not only can run fast in a straight line, but has unbelievable vision and balance and can cut. That guy is the guy that stands out, and he's going to stand out for everybody on the schedule because now everybody is scared to death to put the ball in that guy's hands.
Yeah, I think that if a coach really wants to get fired or get under a heat, it's going to be the coach that sits there and says, we're going to prove that we can stop this guy. It reminded me of Anthony Davis against Notre Dame way back when Ara Parseghian, the legendary coach, was still going to kick it to him, in spite of what Davis had done in the past, kickoff returns. It's kind of the manly thing to do. We don't want to back down. Discretion, better part of valor, really. But we're going to see a lot of kicks out of bounds. Coliseum fans are going to boo. Teams are going to have to decide, are we going to kickoffs? Are we going to kick it to him? But what a threat he would be. What would happen if he caught a kickoff return, started to run up the far sideline, turned around and threw it to a back on the other side of the field on a throwback? Would there be any defenders on that side of the field if Zachariah starts going up the far sideline? There's so many things that can be disruptive, but I thought that it's a completely different dimension. All right, let's ring the bell and get to the second quarter here. The Nevada game, let's talk about that. It's this afternoon at 3:30 p.m. in the Coliseum. Undefeated USC at 1-0, hosts the Nevada Wolfpack from the Mountain West Conference. This will be the Wolfpack's season opener for this season. They are a whopping 38.5 point underdog. That is Nevada under coach Ken Wilson. Last season, Nevada finished 2-10. And are currently riding a 10-game losing streak into the Coliseum. In 2022, Nevada averaged 18.8 points per game while allowing 30.9 points per game. The 2023 Wolfpack returned 5 players on offense, 6 players on defense. Just some names to be aware of. Offensively, the Wolfpack are led by senior receiver Dalvon Campbell and sophomore center Andrew Madrigal. And on defense, the Wolfpack is faced by sophomore lineman Deion Washington, linebacker Drew Watts, and senior corner Isaiah Isisima. Wolfpack also do have, I might add, an exceptional place kicker, senior Brandon Talton. So I know how the odds makers kind of tell you what they expect. Panel, what will you be looking for offensively by the Trojans going against Nevada? Chris?
Well, Greg, you read out all of those names of Nevada players, and the truth is nobody cares. Nobody cares about any of those guys because Nevada is terrible. They're one of the worst teams in the country. I mean, they're really bad. San Jose State is a team that can't compete with USC, but San Jose State is a team that's going to be very competitive in the Mountain West this year. That's a bowl team, right? They are not terrible. Nevada's genuinely terrible. They're terrible offensively. They're terrible defensively. I don't know what they are on special teams, but I think it's safe to guess that they're terrible. It's a really bad football team. So what do I expect offensively? I expect USC will do whatever they want to do offensively against Nevada. And the only way the Trojans don't score on a drive is if they screw up, right? If they fumble the ball, if they do something dumb and get a holding penalty, even a holding penalty probably won't stop them from scoring. But maybe if they get 3 consecutive holding penalties, and I know I'm exaggerating, but this is the truth. Nevada is a really bad football team. They're by far the worst team on USC's schedule this year. And the Trojans will do whatever they want to do. What do they want to do? I don't know. They're probably going to want to run the option more than Jamel Holloway based on what we saw last week. I don't know why. I don't know why we're running option with Caleb Williams at this point in the season, but whatever. I mean, maybe that's what they're going to do. But whatever they want to do, they're going to do. Nevada can't stop it. It's a bad football team. And this is going to be another scrimmage game where USC can play a ton of guys. And that's fun because that will pay off come the middle of October when USC needs depth in the roster.
Mark, what do you think? What are you going to be looking for offensively by the Trojans?
The same thing that we saw in this first game, a lot of players rotating. I anticipate every time they get an offensive series, they'll turn it into a touchdown. So look, they probably should have had 60 points against San Jose State. I'm going to go on the record and say USC will have 60 plus points against Nevada. I don't know if we're going to, again, what do you want to take away from this upcoming game? Chris laid it out there. When you're a 38.5 point dog, you're not good. And when you're going up against a team that has all those skilled players that USC has, even if they're just throwing out vanilla ice cream, it's gonna taste good by the end of the day offensively. I feel bad for Nevada. I feel bad for players like John Jackson III, who,
Right.
who didn't get a chance to show what he's capable of at USC. He's going to get a chance to do it in Nevada, but I just hope he doesn't look up at the scoreboard at the end of the day. It's going to be a long game. There's nothing really to say about this game. It's going to be another one of those. All right, it's preseason game number 2. How many players are going to play? How many plays are those players going to play? And can you keep everybody healthy for Stanford the following week?
Eric?
Yeah, I'm looking for. I'm not trying to guess what's going to happen. I'm curious what USC starts doing with the offensive line. They played the same offensive line in back-to-back series once against San Jose State. Is that the same? Is that the same route they take against Nevada, or do you start to see, hey, we're starting to get an idea? Because Stanford's after that, and there's Pac-12 athletes at Stanford, but not a lot of them based on the number that left. Like this program, I think, can build, but this year Stanford roster is not great. So again, you've got kind of a third game like that, but that starts to be your season, and Stanford's going to bring something a little bit more. So do you want to finish that Nevada game with still kind of some questions up there, or do you want to really start seeing, hey, let's see what we think the offensive line is going to be for 3-4 series in a row and start to really get that in. So that's what I'm curious is, does that start happening this weekend? Other than that, put the ball in Zachariah Branch's hand out in space 3 or 4 times, throw it to the receiver. I mean, that's it, right? Put on a show offensively, get guys out in space, do some stuff. I don't expect this to be a 4-quarter, foot on the gas, starters in for the entire thing. I'd expect to see, again, receptions spread all over the place, rushing attempts spread all over the place. But the offensive line for me is kind of the question. Do you start to dial in with 5? Because I do expect that the USC coaches will have gotten some answers to questions up there on that offensive line from that San Jose State game. You've got film now. You've got an understanding of how guys are going to react in certain situations, how guys play together. Curious if they feel they need another full 60 minutes of that, or if in game on Saturday they really start to dial that in.
Yeah, I'm going to specifically look at the offensive line. Look, at Stanford may not be world beaters in the Pac-12, but they are an important conference game because it is conference. So if you look at this as an exhibition season, the first 2 games, I would get the impression the coaches would like to get them in units rather than individual substitutions, wholesale substitutions at this point. So I think the offensive line intrigues me. It's going to be a score-a-thon, and there's not much you can add to that. panel, conversely, what are you going to be looking for defensively by the Minotroy against Nevada, Chris?
I don't know. I think we'll line up sometimes so that Nevada has 4 blockers on one guy just to see if they can run the ball. And you know what? They will, because everybody can run the ball under those circumstances. Look, USC is going to get plenty of stops against Nevada. Nevada's terrible offensively. But USC has shown over the last 2 years that they're capable of giving up 50-yard runs and long scoring drives, even to terrible offenses. Are they going to do that again next week? I want to say no. But if I said no, it's just because I'm a USC fan. If I were objective about it, I'd look at it and say, yeah, that Nevada team will probably score 24 points. They'll give up 180, but they're going to score 24 because everybody scores in the 20s against USC these days. I badly don't want that to happen. Look, USC is so much better than Nevada. If they go out and give up 3 touchdown drives next week, that'll be an absolute shame. What they should do is they should put their guys in a position where it doesn't take a superhuman effort to stop the play. They can simply line up, play it straight, and beat the guys in front of them. Part of the problem they have is that USC loves to play this aggressive style of play where you're focused on getting tackles for loss, sacks, turnovers, and they're not getting enough of them. I mean, they had seven tackles for loss Saturday. That's not a bad number, but it's not a great number when you're playing against a mediocre football team and you are playing as aggressively as they are. They had 1 sack, they had no turnovers. Those numbers aren't good enough. And so if you're going to play this risky style of defense where you can give up big plays, you have to be better than that. They need to make more plays. So what are we going to see? Honestly, I don't know. It's Nevada, so we're not going to see a loss. We're going to see a blowout. But are we going to feel good about the defense at the end of the day? I don't know. There's so few games over the last few years where we actually, at the end of the game, felt good about the defense, that it's kind of a fool's bet to say that we're going to this week. So I'm not going to. I'm going to say that we're all going to be moderately disappointed because that's what happens every single week. I hope it stops this week.
Mark?
I'm going to be the positive person on the panel today. I think we're going to see improvement from game 1 from the defense, which, Chris pointed out, they had 7 TFLs. Not a great number, not a bad number. They had the 1 sack. What I would love to see from this defense is just come out and line up like we've been talking about. Just line up, put a guy over the ball, put 2 defensive tackles, put a couple of defensive ends, just line up in a 4-3. You don't need to do anything exotic. Play defense. You had what, Eric, how many 3-and-outs did they have for the game? 4 or 5? I know they had 3 in a row at one point. So let's build off of that. They showed signs of better tackling. Let's improve where they didn't look good, take the next step. Again, you're going up against a team that isn't going to really challenge the defense as far as, when you're comparing man-to-man, USC is just a better team across the board. So don't have the penalties that we saw this last game. That's a big step for the secondary. That's the improvement. Don't have the holding calls that you had. If you're playing on the defensive line, make it a goal to have 1 sack. 4 defensive linemen get a sack, that's 4 in the game. Let's increase that tackle for loss number from 7 to 10. If that, I think everybody who's going to be moderately disappointed will be mildly happy.
Eric?
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get anything that's long-term out of this defensively. I mean, it would be a good thing for that day, right? If Nevada scores 3 or 7 or something that's not multiple touchdown drives, right? But it still doesn't give you a ton of confidence for that second half of the season, right? Like that's not going to be until you start really doing that against Pac-12 teams. But just for Saturday, it's the big play. It's the big play. It's the untouched run between the tackles somewhere that goes for 45 yards. That you can't see that. You can't see that. You've got to be buttoned up enough for a full 60 minutes to where those things don't happen. And really that's it. Like the one-on-one deep shots down the sideline where they make a great play, that's gonna happen sometimes if you're in position and you're not completely, thrown off by the play call and there's miscommunication and all that kind of stuff. Those kind of plays happen. You don't like to see them, but I would take that over a giant gaping hole over left guard where the left guard is 9 yards downfield hitting your linebacker with nobody in the way. So that becomes what you want to see, right? There's just no easy runs, big yards for Nevada. And that gives you one day of saying, okay, you can do it against somebody. But the questions will start up right away after that. Who now can you do it against a Pac-12 program? Now can you do it against a good program, later down the road? So I don't think you're going to get a whole lot from Nevada that is long-term, this is fixed and that looks great. But you sure could feel better for one afternoon, one evening, based on them coming out and limiting some of those big plays.
Yeah, and I'll conclude it by saying I just want to see them be disciplined, play with high emotion, be technically sound, and make sure that they stay in their gaps. Don't try to be a hero if you know you can miss your overmatch with or somebody they overmatch their opponent. And that's basically what I'm going to be looking for. So let's continue on here by saying Inside the Trojan Huddle viewers, listeners, have you ever been caught in the last-minute ticket frenzy? I know I have. The stress, the uncertainty, it's a ride you don't need, but guess what? There's a game-changing solution, and it's called Game Time. Imagine this. Effortless ticket buying for all your favorite sports, music, comedy, theater arts, events. No more frantic searches. Game Time is your ultimate ticket buddy. Sounds good to me. But what about the perks? How about incredible deals on last-minute tickets and a rock-solid best price guarantee? Say goodbye to ticket anxiety and hello to the sheer joy of being in the moment. Fire up the Game Time app, and trust me, the lineup is unreal. Sports, concerts, plays, you name it, Game Time's got your back. Tickets to this week's USC game against Nevada in the Collie are available for as low as $13 per ticket. Game Time has the Dodgers, Angels, Rams, Chargers, and tickets to all your favorite Los Angeles teams. Flash deals, easy access, seat view images, unbeatable best price guarantee, even protection. Game Time has it all. Game Time is the ultimate destination for last-minute ticket deals. Score tickets right up to the event day. From football clashes to concerts that rock, they've got it all. Seat images, they'll give you a sneak peek. Buying tickets, easy as taps on your phone. Tickets are sent straight to your phone. Here's a treat. Head to gametime.co. That's gametime.co. That's co, not .com. Download the app, create an account, use code Trojans for $20 off your first purchase. Ready to dive in? Again, head to gametime.co. That's gametime.co. Create your own account and redeem code Trojans for $20 off. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Trojans for $20 off. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code Trojans for $20 off on your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's head to halftime. Panel, in an obvious attempt to get his Heisman Trophy back, last week, former Trojans tailback filed a defamation lawsuit, that is Reggie Bush, against the NCAA, looking to hold the governing body responsible for attacking his character. Panel, will Bush finally get his Heisman Trophy back in his possession with this apparent legal confrontation? Eric?
I don't know. I'm not as sold on that. I don't think it's slam dunk for it. I think that he's won the court of public opinion, right? That's kind of one step there. I think enough people now are speaking out and understand that that he should have it and that it's common sense to give it back to him. I don't know if there's enough here in that lawsuit to actually do anything. Pay for play can be described as so many things. I think if it was specifically in there that it said USC paid him to play at USC, there's something there. So I don't know if it's as easy as just, everybody believes this and he should give it back. It's clear that it's up to the NCAA at this point. The Heisman Trust has kind of punted on this. They've said, if the NCAA reinstates him, then we'll give, then he'll be eligible because he technically played in those games and he'll have the Heisman Trophy. So it's not as if the Heisman Trust can just give it. They could, right? But they've tied themselves now at this point to the NCAA. And I don't know if they have a whole reason to do this. I'll tell you, the unspoken villains in this are all the other Heisman winners over the years who could just come out and say, yeah, I got money too. We all did. So take them all away or let him have his back. And clearly that's not going to happen. So no, I don't think it's a slam dunk that he'll get it back. It should be. I mean, it should be. Those are two different questions. But at this point, I'd be mildly surprised if it went all the way through and the NCAA reinstated him.
Chris?
I'm not sure how the NCAA goes about reinstating him. I mean, I've obviously been a huge critic of the NCAA, including their decision in the with the USC Infractions Committee report. But that Reggie Bush received benefits, I don't think that's the part that is difficult to defend. He did. The problem was the rest of the NCAA report. So what is the NCAA supposed to do? The NCAA is supposed to come out and say Reggie Bush didn't receive improper benefits, or they're supposed to say he did, but we'll say he was eligible anyway. I don't know what any of that means. The reality is that, as Eric pointed out, if you were to figure out which of those other Heisman winners received some form of improper benefit, it would probably be somewhere near 90%. It might be every single one of them except the guys that play at the military academies, and maybe even them. So it's all stupid. But what is the NCAA going to say? I don't know. I think the NCAA will defend the defamation claim on its merits. Keep in mind, with defamation, you not only have to prove falsity, that the statement was false, but Reggie Bush is a public figure. You have to prove actual malice, which means that they knew they were lying or that they showed a reckless disregard for whether they were telling the truth. Maybe you can establish that here too. And then you have to show that his reputation was damaged. I don't think Reggie's reputation was damaged because the NCAA said what they said about pay for play. People who believe that Reggie Bush cheated, they already believe that. People like me who think the NCAA was guilty of a kangaroo court and was a fraudulent committee for a corrupt organization, they weren't affected by it. I doubt if anybody changed their mind based on that comment. And the only way you win a defamation case is if somebody changes their mind based on that comment. So I don't know. I don't want to weigh into the legal technicalities, but it strikes me as a lawsuit that's probably one the NCAA can just defend. But I hope he gets it back. More importantly, I hope USC just decides that they're not going to listen to that nonsense anymore and just claim they're eighth and treat as and we all saw he won it. Just treat it as if they have 8 Heisman Trophy winners, which they do, and not worry about it. And then Reggie can figure out whether he can actually get a copy of the trophy in his house. I don't much care about that.
Mark?
I don't know. Just look, as far as winning the defamation of character case, he probably wouldn't win it. But here's a question I would ask. Does the NCAA want to go to court again? Especially regarding this issue? They got much bigger problems to handle right now. I mean, like being a part of college football in the future. At this point, why not just say, you know what? Then Reggie Bush broke the rules. Today, in light of the new, college football NIL world that we live in, everybody broke the rules back then. So we're going to pardon Reggie and allow the Heisman Trust to give it back to him. I don't think this thing ever gets to court, to be honest with you. I don't think the NCAA wants any more negative publicity. They're trying to get a handle on what's going on with the whole college football thing, and especially NIL. So do you want to go to court and have all this stuff rehashed again, just so Reggie Bush can bring in Johnny Manziel and every other Heisman winner he knows that got paid to say, hey, look, take his away too, or give me mine back? Again, you want Chris is the legalese guy here, but Erik mentioned it. He's already won in the court of public opinion. At this point, does the NCAA want to go back to court, regular court or the court of public opinion? Because they're gonna have to win both battles.
I think that this is a negotiating tool. I think that we obviously know SC did not pay him to play. We can all agree on that. But somebody in the NCAA did come out and say, pay for play. So they caught him. They caught him. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to go out of court settlement. Reggie will say, I won't sue you if you'll retract and make me eligible to get my trophy back. Because I think the NCAA is, again, I'm no legal expert by a long shot, but I think he's got him there in terms of what was said by that NCAA, whether it was a media person or whatever. He's on the hook for that. And I think that they'll work out an arrangement that Reggie will get his trophy back. Maybe they're going to ask him to say something, to say that, it was unfortunate what happened, just so everybody's a win-win situation. But I think that's where they're headed. Okay, let's move on to quarterback Julian Juju Lewis, the number 1 overall prospect for the recruiting class of 2026 from Carrollton, Georgia. He's committed to the Trojans, but will it stick? Your reaction, analysis to this commitment, Erik, is this commitment going to stick, or is this another case of 6 months from now he goes, oops, I'm reopening my commitment?
It's going to stick if Lincoln Riley's the head coach at USC. When Lincoln Riley leaves for the Cowboys, like we talked about last week, right? I don't know if Julian Lewis can commit to Dallas. No, you see guys, especially quarterbacks, that kind of tie themselves to offense coordinators or head coaches. I think that connection is so deep that he's that guy. Now, does USC go out and get a guy with 2 or 3 years in the transfer portal next offseason? That's something that you just can't answer anymore. I mean, the offseason transfer portal, who goes where, who pops up in there, how does that work? There's no way to guess that. If the quarterback room at USC continues on the trajectory it is right now, yes, he's gonna play quarterback for Lincoln Riley. Is absolutely my take on it right now.
Okay, what about you, Chris? What do you think?
I'd be surprised if he didn't come to USC. I mean, this kid wants to win the Heisman Trophy, and he wants to be a number 1 NFL draft choice. And there's one easy way to accomplish that, and that is to take amazing talent and go marry it to Lincoln Riley. So, and the other thing is that a lot of these kids who decommit because somebody else is offering them a bag of cash, that's not as big an issue with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks actually can make legitimate NIL money. When I say legitimate NIL money, I mean they can actually get advertising dollars from real companies and make a lot of money. Caleb Williams is Malachi Nelson already has some lucrative deals. So it's not like when you're recruiting these interior offensive linemen who have no value in the marketplace, and somebody's going to offer them $300,000, it's tough for them to say no. But Julian Lewis doesn't have to worry about that. He is going to have people offering him money if he comes to USC, and he's smart enough to realize that if he comes to USC, he's going to be a Heisman candidate. He may win the trophy, and he's going to be a high draft choice. That's what he wants, because guys, that's where the real money is. The real money is being a number 1 overall draft choice and being a success in the NFL. Those guys make a whole lot more money than these guys that get $400,000 from Oregon or Miami to go play football for them, right? Doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I'd be very surprised if it didn't stick.
Mark?
Yeah, it sticks, especially if rumor has it, he's planning to transfer out for his junior year to play high school ball in California. It's going to stick. And I'm also aware that who he's planning to have as his off-season quarterback trainer, guru, so to speak. Yeah, there's already a plan in place. I would be shocked if he didn't stick. Let me put it that way.
And I agree with Mark. I think for all those reasons, it's going to stick unless Lincoln decides he's going to Dallas or somewhere else. All right, friends, before
Hey, what do you mean you agree with Mark? We all had the same answer, Greg. We all had the same answer. Don't you agree with us too?
Here we go. Are we going to feel sorry for ourselves?
I'm not feeling sorry.
And Chrissy too. And Chrissy too. Friends, before we head into the second half kickoff of topics here on the Huddle, again, a reminder, we encourage those of you watching Inside the Trojans Huddle on sites like YouTube to click the like and red subscriber buttons. It's greatly valued. Appreciate it. It's free. You can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on many available podcast sites. And be sure to check out WeAreSC.com and become a premium subscriber. So we move along here at a quicker pace. The lightning round, folks, in honor of USC going to the Big Ten in 2024. We kick off the third quarter of Inside the Trojans Huddle with our Big Ten lightning round. Panel, answer the following statements with a brief comment if necessary. We'll go in this order: Mark, Erik, Chris, and myself. Here we go. Question 1, yes or no? Trojans will have a different starting lineup on defense this Saturday. Mark?
Yes.
Erik?
No.
Chris?
Yes.
I say yes. Question 2, yes or no? The Trojans will have a different starting offensive line against Nevada. Mark?
No.
Erik?
No.
Chris?
That was just the offensive line? I'll say no.
The offensive line.
Nope.
Okay, I say yes. Question 3, yes or no? Nevada will get less than 20 first downs against the Trojans defense. Mark?
Yes.
Erik?
No.
Chris?
Geez, 20 first downs. If Nevada gets more than 20 first downs, Alex Grinch should get on a bus, head to South America, and never be heard from again. That's a crazy number.
San Jose State had 22, just to
Thank you.
compare.
Nevada probably didn't have 20 in a game all year last year. If 20 is a big, please don't let Nevada have 20 first downs. That'll be terrible.
I'll say that no. Question 4, yes or no? The Trojans defense will hold the Nevada offense to under 17 points on Saturday. Mark?
Yes.
Erik?
Under 17. Yeah.
Push?
Yeah.
Can we put, is 17 considered a push? Can we take that?
Yeah. I was thinking 17. I'll say less.
Okay, Chris?
No.
I'll say no. Question 5, yes or no? Marc Kulkin will have at least 5 cookies and 5 bags of chips in the Coliseum press box during the Nevada game. Mark?
Oh,
Yes
yeah. I've got my bodega right behind me.
Now this can't be fair to have him answer a question that he can determine the answer to. I refuse to participate in this.
Erik, this was my
because Mark's gonna do whatever he can to make me wrong. So I have to agree with him. I mean, yes.
I'm bringing a bigger backpack too.
Chris?
Like 5 full-size cookies or the mini Famous Amos cookies?
Well, no, full-size cookies in a pack.
Jeez, 5 full-size cookies? I'm going to say yes, but that's not good, Mark. Don't do that.
Definitely he will have at least 5 cookies and 5 bags of chips. I can
One of those cookies,
verify that. And if he has less than that, it's going to be an AP 5 bell bulletin. Question 6, over or under? Caleb Williams will throw for 5 touchdowns against Nevada in the first half. Mark?
In the first half? Under.
In the first half.
Under.
Yeah. Yeah, under.
Chris?
Under.
I say it'll be under. Question 7, yes or no? The Trojans tailbacks Austin Jones and Marshawn Lloyd will or at least 200 combined yards against Nevada. Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes.
Okay, Erik?
No, not just those two. Total, I think they rush for 200 with all the running backs. I think you're still going to see Quentin Joyner and Darren Barlow and all those guys.
Oh, they're going for 300 with those guys.
Chris?
Yeah, I think yes. It better be yes.
Okay, I'm going to say yes. Question 8, yes or no, on Saturday there will be less than an announced crowd of 60,000 fans in the Coliseum. Mark?
I hate to say yes, but yeah.
Erik?
I don't think they're going to announce less than 60,000.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree with Erik. There will be less than 60, but they'll announce 64.
They will announce 60,000 or more, but there will be less than 60,000. Although the weather, they say, is going to be around 78 degrees, which far different than any Labor Day weekend temperature that I've been around. Yes or no? Question 9. Place kicker Dennis Lynch will either win or lose a game during the season on a field goal attempt in the fourth quarter of a game. Mark?
I'm not putting that kind of bad juju on Dennis Lynch. No, they're not. I don't think USC is going to be in a position where they have to rely on him to kick the game-winning field goal or walk off the field a loser. I hate you even asking that question, Greg.
Well, we deal in reality here. Erik?
No.
Chris?
Yes, every team has that situation come up at least once.
And I agree.
With time going all zeros or just an important late game?
He said fourth quarter.
Fourth
He just
quarter.
said fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter. Yes.
But will that be the final determination of the game?
All right, you caught me. I don't pay attention to anything anybody says.
Well, that's par for the course. I'm going to stick with yes at some point. It's going to have a big factor. Question 10, yes or no? Class of 2026 5-star USC quarterback commit Julian Lewis from Georgia will reclassify to the class of 2025 to enter USC quicker. Mark?
Yes.
Erik?
Yep.
Chris?
Yep.
And I agree. All right, your bonus question. Fill in the blank, guys. The scariest motion picture I have ever seen was, Mark?
That would be The Exorcist with Linda Blair spitting pea soup everywhere.
Very good. Erik?
It's It. I do not like clowns. I also won't walk on sewer grates or manhole covers. That was a horrifying mashup for me.
Wow. Sleep with the lights on. Okay, Chris?
I thought The Hitcher when I was a kid was awfully scary. I don't think I'd find it scary today, but I did then.
Okay, and I'm going to conclude this segment with The Exorcist, the first one with Linda Blair. It was a nightmare. I didn't think I could last the whole theater. I kept saying to a guy who had read the book, does it get worse? Oh, yeah, it's going to get much worse. And boy, was he right about that. So let's transition here into the fourth quarter. And I must do this, of course, the symbolic lighting of the torch for WeAreSC. And I tell you, I thought of this when they lit the torch at the Coliseum on Saturday and said, how appropriate for Inside the Trojans Huddle that we can celebrate in the same way. So we have
it's only the fourth quarter. Holy smokes.
We're going through this. Well, you have to give this long dissertation about your anger for the defense. And I thought it was,
I was gonna say you blacked out and put 6 shows worth of content together in the warm-up.
Guys,
in the interest of mental health, he needed it.
We could have made up for it by not talking about Kulkin's cookie consumption. I don't know. All right, let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, here we go. Fourth quarter. It's game prediction time. We ask that you predict the winner from selected ranked Pac-12 teams and a national game of significance. This Thursday, August 31st, Florida at number 14, Utah, 5 p.m. Pacific, ESPN. Utah is favored by 7 points. Chris, who wins it?
I think Florida wins that one at home, but Florida's terrible in non-conference games, so it would not surprise me if they choked it away.
Okay, Mark?
This game's in Salt Lake City, right?
Correct.
I'm going to pick Utah with a game-winning field goal.
Erik?
So you're going to put that on the Utah kicker?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Utah close there. I mean, I hope, right? It would be perfect if the Pac-12 in its last year starts winning those games that resonate nationally and keep teams ranked.
All right, I think it gets down to whether Cam Rising plays. So I'm going to go with positive vibes and say that he will play. So therefore, I'll take Utah if he plays. All right, Saturday, September 2nd, no brainer here. Portland State at number 15, Oregon, 12 p.m. Pac-12 Network. By the way, these times are all Pacific Coast times. Oregon is they didn't have it on the board. That's how bad it was when I last checked. So can we all agree it's going to be Oregon? All in favor?
It shouldn't be on our board either.
I
We're
think
not
on
even gonna
our
talk
board,
about it.
Greg.
Yeah, I'm
All
not
right.
even going to talk about it.
Okay, see, there you go. You guys are becoming undisciplined. Boise State at number 10, Washington, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, ABC. Washington's favored by 14.5 points. Chris?
Huskies win that. It's at home, and Boise's program has slipped over the last few years.
Mark?
100%.
Yep.
Okay, Eric?
Yep. Sounds good.
Agree. All right. Sunday, September 3rd, number 18, Oregon State at San Jose State, 12:30 p.m. On CBS. Oregon State is favored by 17 points. Is this a unanimous vote here?
Oregon State will win. They will not score 56, and they will not give up 7.3 yards per carry.
Mark?
So what happens if San Jose State pulls the upset? Does that temper everybody's anger a little bit?
No.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, no.
No, this has all the makings of San Jose State not showing up and getting run, right? I mean, isn't that how it works? You use all the bullets against USC, and then you're not the same team the next week. They've got an extra day, and I think Brent Brennan's a good coach, and Lincoln Riley's right when he says that program is solid for what it is. But it'll be interesting that game especially. It'll be a fun one for USC fans, I think, to watch that.
All right. By executive order, Nevada at number 6, USC, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, Pac-12 Networks. SC is favored by 38.5 points. I declare the game will be won by USC, speaking for all of our outstanding panelists. And our national game of the week, September 3rd, number 5, LSU at number 8, Florida State, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, ABC and ESPN3. LSU is favored by 2.5 points. Chris, who wins it?
I like Brian Kelly in a dance-off. LSU by 3.
All right, the dance-off card. Mark.
Yeah, if LSU's defense is healthy, they'll probably win this game. I'm not a big Mike Norvell Florida State fan.
Eric.
Yeah, same. LSU, I think.
All right, and I believe it'll be LSU as well. So we're back on track. Viewer questions, panel answers. Panel, it's overtime. Time to answer some viewer questions from our WeAreSC members message board. This is an open forum. So panel, feel free to jump right in with your answers. Question 1 from Big Daddy in Southern California, or SoCal as he writes. As much as I hate to reference ND, Notre Dame, and I realize that it was only one game, but the player, Zach Branch, reminds me most of Rocket Ishmael. How would you compare the two, and can you find a better comparison? Thanks, Big Daddy. I think we did answer that question. Unless somebody else wants to chime in with something.
I like the Rocket comparison much better than Jamil Muhammad saying he reminded him of DeAnthony Thomas. Not that he doesn't, but that's probably not the best player to say he represents when you're talking to USC people.
What's interesting is that all the comparisons are like the best player who's ever played at that program, right? It's Reggie Bush, it's Tavon Austin, it's Percy Harvin, it's Rocket Ishmael. I mean, and he's played one game. I mean, one game, and people who really know football and care about talking football are throwing that kind of stuff out there for him.
All right. Question number 2 from Trojan Forever in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Why in the first game of the year which should never have been in doubt, is Caleb running frequently, including flying into a bench out of bounds? Why is Riley gambling with our franchise player against Notre Dame, of course? Comments?
Already have.
If you're going to run the option, you have to practice it. I don't know why USC is running the option, and I certainly don't want to see Caleb Williams getting tackled in scrimmages.
I mean, even when Miller Moss came in the game, he had a couple of really nice throws. And then when you give him a chance to score a touchdown, it's a design run, quarterback run. It's almost like they were doing it on purpose for some reason. I don't get it.
All right, question 3 from Trojan from the Valley. Panel, I'm happy we won, but were you more disappointed by the play of the offensive line or the defensive line? Also, what was with the Pac-12 refs again? Seriously, bad non-reversal on the onside kick. Comments?
I'd say the offensive line, defensive line were pretty equal for me. I don't think I was like hugely disappointed by the individual play of either of them. It's going to be about kind of getting it all together and filling in gaps and making sure that you don't have those blown assignments on each one. But I think you got some standout plays from individual guys on both sides, and both groups look like they're going to be, I think, settle in and be talented enough to where if they're always in the right spots, they're going to make enough plays.
I'll say the Pac-12 refs for being the Pac-12 refs. They were rounding into shape for the conference season.
But they had 2 chances to get it right on that, and they blew both things. 1, San Jose State touched the ball first. 2, they were blocking before the ball was legal. I mean,
They're the worst, Mark. You know that. They're the worst.
I know. And like I said, thank you, Chris, for stopping me. I don't want to keep you awake any longer.
Let's go to question 4 from Romy in Huntington Beach, California. It seems to me that we are out of position on most of those long gainers by San Jose State, visions of 2022. The talent is present. They're not getting help from the sidelines. Your thoughts? I think we kind of went over this. Anybody else want to add anything?
Chris has a part 2 ready to go.
I don't. I'm tired. It's 12:30.
We have to get through this so that we can put Chris to bed.
It's 12:30 in England. I'm tired.
There you go. All right, this is from Alan. Okay, you 4. Lots of SC fans here and on TOS freaking out despite a first game win. Some of it is understandable, some not. So put your thinking caps on and answer this. Are fans' expectations for this season too high, or is the negativity from the Helton years still hovering over us like a dark cloud?
It's not the fans' expectations. Listen to what Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and all the rest of them are saying.
Absolutely.
I think that this is a team that has the talent to win a championship. So no, the fans are not wrong to expect that. That's what the team expects. They should.
Well said, Chris.
Yeah, I think that the fans are right on in their expectations. The players are right on the expectations. You know what? It is what it is. Go win a conference title and get into the national title mix. Question 6 from Poobah from San Diego. Here on the forums, we've been eagerly anticipating the start of the season since the crushing end of last season. We micro-analyze every player, coach, scheme, position group, etc., every aspect. So when we watch the first game, we're all hyper-vigilant and maybe hypercritical. Do you think the average non-USC person / college football fan / general public member that watched the game thought things like, man, they need to fire their DC, or boy, that team needs a lot of work? Or do you think they thought things like, USC is going to be great again this year, or first game of the season against fair to middling teams with pretty darn good quarterback, and the Trojans handled their business very solidly? Comment?
What was the question?
What people thought was, here it comes again. Lincoln Riley has a team with a great offense and a suspect defense that has a chance to cost it a spot in the playoffs. And it's going to be up to the players and the coaches to change that over the course of the season. But if you give up 28 points a game to a team like that, USC gave up 29 a game last year. So if you're giving up 28, 29 in that same area, you're going to end up kind of struggling the same way to beat the better teams. And that's a narrative. That's a national narrative now that Lincoln Riley's teams don't play defense. They don't play great defense, and they have to change that. They have to play great defense. I mean, Chris threw out the numbers, right? Everybody saw those numbers, the rushing yards, the yards per carry, all that stuff. That translate. Those are stats. Game one.
Or no, I'm kidding.
All right, that kind of transitions to question 7 from USC 1. Bigger surprise, our D giving up 198 yards rushing, or our offense rushing for 160 yards? Which one was the bigger surprise?
I want to say the 198.
I agree with Mark.
I shouldn't be surprised, but giving up 198, that was disappointing.
It was disappointing. Any other comments? All right, our last question from Trojans 2021 from Chicago. It's pretty obvious that these first few games are going to be an extension of fall camp, playing a bunch of players and young ones. So I'm going to be somewhat patient on the D until they find their best combination of players and see how things improve. When do you think we are going to settle in and find the right combination of frontline players, after the bye week or right before Notre Dame? Hopefully sooner rather than later. Comment.
Stanford.
I agree. They've got to get it in gear now. Stanford.
I think along the defensive line, I think you're going to see rotation all year. I mean, the idea that they're going to settle on 4 guys and just play those guys all season, I don't think that's going to happen in the defensive front specifically. Secondary, I think those guys get left out there a little bit more. I think if you can find 2 inside linebackers that you really like, I think they're going to play a lot. But I think you're going to see guys in and out on the defensive line for the whole season.
Any other comments? I think that we'll see the offensive line as a unit with the normal substitution patterns. I do think there'll be rotation along the defensive line throughout the whole season. I think they're deep, and I think it's going to work to their benefit, especially with a slew of really physical games in the second half of the season. So with that, a reminder, if you have a question or comments for our panel, go to the WeAreSC members message board, click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle, viewer or listener questions. We really appreciate all the questions. They're good questions, and we appreciate you being a part of the Inside the Trojans Huddle. Once again, if you enjoyed the Trojans Huddle, please click on the like and red subscriber buttons. We greatly appreciate your support. Be sure to check out WeAreSC.com, become a premium subscriber. And a reminder, watch 5 things after the game. And Mark and I and our moderator, Erik McKinney, will go over 5 important factors for the game. So with that, that'll do it for Tuesday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. So until next Tuesday, when we review the Nevada game and preview the first conference game against Stanford, the Trojans Pac-12 opener. A big thank you again to our panelists, Marc Kulkin, Erik McKinney, Chris Arledge from England, and a special big thank you to all of you for watching or listening to Inside Trojans Huddle. Have yourself a great week. Beat the Wolfpack. And until next Tuesday, this is your moderator, Greg Katz, reminding all of you to fight on, everybody.